Tom Murphy now joins us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, what was your reaction when you saw Ole Miss win the national championship yesterday?
Good morning, guys. Honestly, being up in Omaha, you hear or see on Twitter a lot of things from the Arkansas fan side. The whole boom thing and their fans, spraying beer all over people. Not my cup of tea. But honestly, listening to the post-game remarks by Justin Bench and Elko and Graham and listening to Mike Bianco, I actually gained some respect for the players and Bianco in the way they conducted themselves, much like Dave Van Horn, just respecting the game and in the press conferences and stuff. So, honestly, it's a 1-year deal. I mean, Graham and Elko and a lot of those guys are gone. I think Bench is a senior too. So, I thought Oklahoma was all set up. Their pitching was in line. They had been so hot. The way they battled pitchers was phenomenal on that side of the bracket. But Ole Miss, Clay just said it. They were number one to start the year. They got it together at the exact moment they had to, or they wouldn't have even been in the tournament. And they showed they had some pitchers show up late in the year that, I don't know how much time they were getting early, but they played the best at the very end. They overcame a late deficit, and they won it all. And so the SEC is producing champions left and right, and Arkansas is going to keep knocking at the door because that recruiting is not going to go away.
And, Tom, off that recruiting tidbit you just shared, that's what I asked Tom. I said, how is Arkansas going to break through and win one? He said stacking classes, which is what Dave Van Horn has done. So I would pose that same question to you. Is that the biggest attribute for Arkansas baseball winning a national championship right now? It's just the recruiting classes that they continuously bring in?
Yeah, got to keep bringing in the younger guys. And then, you've got to put it together where, like, a guy like Carson Wallace isn't eligible after his sophomore year. You know what I mean? Like, keep a guy like him and then add some more hitting depth. Next year is going to be a challenge. They're losing so many position players, and they will lose pitchers too. And we know that Dave Van Horn and his staff are going to, quote, put it together, and they're going to be feisty and a hard team to beat. But imagining that they'll be the 21 Razorbacks is probably a little bit too much. And look at the competition. Two SEC West teams that they were clearly, ahead of this year and last year won the national championships. LSU's coming on. If you look at the LSU program right now, you could argue they're behind almost everybody but Bama because Auburn made the College World Series too, and A&M made the College World Series. So the competition's not going anywhere. It's just going to be tough every year. But maybe Arkansas will put together a dominant roster, like they did last year and have a chance. But if you get to Omaha, you're giving yourself an opportunity to do it. They're the only team that beat Ole Miss in Omaha with a 3-2 win. They just ran into Dylan DeLucia and, his dominance. But you know that they're going to keep putting the pieces together, and maybe one year it'll all fall into place.
And the only team not just to beat them in Omaha, but all postseason long, because they swept the regional and super regional, the one in Hattiesburg, and I can't remember. I think they started in Coral Gables, if I remember that right. But they, outside of that Arkansas loss, they had not lost all season in the postseason. Now, Tom, you bring up Carson Wallace. He is a draft-eligible sophomore. Is he all but gone? Are we just waiting on an announcement at this point based on how high he's stocked up there in MLB mock drafts?
Yeah, pretty much so. And, you could just tell there was a little bit of difference in his bat and everyone else's on the team. He's exit velocities, the way he can square balls up, and, hit around 300. And Dave Van Horn said it in his post game. He didn't say him by name, but, we're going to lose some seniors and a draft-eligible sophomore, and he's the only one who really fits that category. So, it was great to have Carson Wallace. And homegrown and the whole 9 yards, well-spoken kid. But they just got to keep restocking.
Real quick, and then I'll let Clay ask you something after this. Wes Johnson LSU, D1 baseball. Kendall Rogers reported that yesterday. That kind of blew me out of the water. 4 years from Minnesota, now heading back to the Southeastern Conference, and Jay Johnson has added some dudes out of the portal as well. What kind of dynamic does that throw into the SEC West? Johnson coming back to pitch in the to coach in the college ranks. Tom.
Yeah. I don't know in the inner workings of what's going on with the Twins, but it's a huge deal for the SEC, for Jay Johnson, because Wes knows what he's doing. He has a way with the pitchers. Like he gets them to, maximize their talents. And, Matt Hobbs is a fantastic pitching coach as well. So it's just another piece. It's just another premier-type coach who is going to help the LSU program. And it just goes to show you got Mississippi State, you got Ole Miss, the national champions the last 2 years, Auburn, Arkansas, and A&M all at the College World Series this year with Ole Miss. And where was LSU baseball? They gave Southern Miss a great fight, but they didn't win the regional against Southern Miss. So they're just going to be a tougher out next year is what it is.
Tom, when you look at Arkansas's pitching and the young guys, Brady Tigert, Hagen Smith, and I guess Will McIntyre's a little older, but do you sense that might be the strength of next year's team?
It very well could be, because when you sort through who was a starter, Hagen Smith, and who they want to groom into a starter, Tigert, and then McIntyre doing what he did, and then you've got Jackson Wiggins still in the mix. You start putting the pieces together, and you could have a weekend rotation. And then what if any freshmen are able to do that like Smith did this year? Then you're stacking some depth up. So I do believe, and then there's going to be some attrition and losses and things like that. They're going to have to fill in roles, but they're recruiting well, and I like the way Smith rebounded late in the year, because it looked like, okay, you're out of the rotation for that final series against Bama. You come out of the pen, and he did have some success with some saves in the postseason. But then when they needed him to, he starts the Ole Miss game, and then that's the game they win at the College World Series. So good on Hagen Smith. There's always the theory, they hit the freshman wall. This is the most innings they've ever pitched. And maybe there was something to that as it got really hot late in the year. But that he bounced back and handled a lineup that had been really crushing it speaks to the kid's ability. And so, yeah, they're going to have options next year with their starting rotation, and sometimes they feel like it's going to go a certain way, and it morphs and becomes something different. But they're going to have to feel their way out. They got 4 weekends, including that opening weekend, to start sorting who their weekend pitchers are going to be.
Yeah, I think that we don't really know what college baseball will look like in the SEC next year when you realize that Texas A&M added 15 guys in the portal last year. And it's like, okay, you don't expect Jim Schlossnagel's first year to be just, the rage, and it wasn't started out. So Ole Miss struggled for a while, Texas A&M struggled for a while, and then they kind of meshed it all together. Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe we're looking at a different era in college baseball because of the portal?
I do believe that, Clay. I'm sure you probably do too. And it applies to men's basketball. It applies to, just about any sport. And football, the Razorbacks were a better team the last couple of years because of Felipe Franks and various other transfer portal guys.
Ridgeway.
And Williams. Yeah, Ridgeway and Williams. And A&M went from having a sub-500 record and adding Schlossnagel and this group of transfers and becoming a tough deal and wins the SEC West. So it just goes to show you can build your team in various ways, but the transfer portal is a huge part of things now. You can kind of change the fortunes of your team in the span of a year. That's why you've got to be adept at A, recruiting freshman talent, and B, making the transfer portal work for you and keeping the talent, because kids now have to face the fact that, hey, you know, I'm just say you're Dylan Leach. He's in the portal now. He felt like maybe he'd come in right after Casey Opitz, but you have to keep recruiting, and you can't argue that Michael Turner was not a huge piece on this team. And so the kids who are on your roster have to understand you're recruiting right behind them, and a better guy might come along. So, fortunes can change now in the course of a year, and you have to embrace the portal and be ready to recruit it, much like Pittman, Van Horn, Musselman, all the coaches on the Arkansas campus have done. In softball, they're adding key pieces left and right.
Tom, one more question from me before we let you go, and this will be a topic that Clay and I discuss more in detail tomorrow, but I want your opinion on it. I think Arkansas fans are more excited about this basketball season or the football season that's upcoming as we're 68 days out from Razorback football?
Well, of course, you're splitting hairs on which one they're most excited about. I think they're probably really excited about both. I think the expectation that the last couple of years reflect on Eric Musselman in basketball, I think people will feel that they're maybe more of a natural that they're going to achieve in the postseason as they have. And then with football, there might be a few more questions because you did lose a bunch of defensive talent, even though I thought the defense played really well in the spring. That there's more questions to be answered for the football team. And if Jaden Hazelwood comes in and KJ finds a guy he's real comfortable with on the deep ball, that he's got a good knack for throwing, and the run game is pretty much what it was last year, a difference maker, and they're able to move the ball and they play decent defense, they should be a good team. But winning the games that are swing games, they've shown the last couple of years they can start getting that done. And they're going to have to do a lot of that because if you go down the list of all their SEC West opponents, there's going to be a ton of swing games involved in that. You add South Carolina, you're like, well, Arkansas should win that game. It's at home. But South Carolina's coming on. So a lot of swing games in football. And I just think the excitement of what it takes to be a successful football team is always going to be a deal for Razorback fans. That can we do it again? You know, can we be a challenger again? People believe in Sam Pittman, but it is not easy to be near the top of the West. And so there's excitement for both sports.
Tom, we'll leave it there, man. Appreciate your time as always, buddy.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll talk on Thursday.
You bet you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.
Good stuff from always Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Whole Hog Sports.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.